go. I'd like to call to order the business meeting for the Cave Creek Unified School District, number 93. Today is Monday, June 12th, and it is 6 p.m. All members of the board, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all members of the board are present. From the cabinet is Dr. Jensen and Dr. Hendrickson and Mrs. Rodriguez from the financial department and our superintendent. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
A second. Are there any changes?
I would like to pull items 4.6 and 4.7.
And where would you like to put them?
Just at the end of
Action consent?
action consent, yeah.
Okay. And I am going to pull 3.2 and put it at the very end before our upcoming events. All right. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, President's report. Well, since school's out, not much is going on. Went to graduation. It was fabulous, and congratulations to the class of 2023. And I will say it was slightly intimidating being in Cardinal Stadium. It was a great venue, but it was a tad bit overwhelming. But that's about all I've got. Anybody else? Member Brown.
It was a busy last couple of weeks of the school year. I tried to get out to my schools. Had the grad walk at Lone Mountain where the seniors go back out to their elementary schools and do a lap around the campuses with all the K through 6th grades applauding them. And there was some touching moments. Some of the seniors seeing some of their teachers that they'd had years before. Lots of hugs. There was a few tears. So it was a neat event. That was something that's just started up here the last couple of years, and I hope we can continue that. Of course, then the senior awards event at the Fine Arts Center, and then at Lone Mountain, the kindergarten promotion, the 6th grade promotion, and then of course the middle school promotion that we had at the Fine Arts Center, the high school graduation out at the Cardinal Stadium. And then I popped my head in the door for one day of the May Mania, the PLC program that the district put together, and I was very impressed. A lot of energy in the room, a lot of positive. You could just tell it was a good learning experience for our teachers that signed up for that. So,
I think graduations and promotions are always a highlight of what we get to be a part of, so that's always a great way to wrap up the year. I do have a few children doing different ECS summer programs, which have been awesome, the offerings that are throughout there. So this week I have 3 kids on between Cactus Shadows and Black Mountain Elementary, but just fun to see those things back up and running in full force and lots of different classes and offerings they can do. So kudos to ECS for getting that all set up.
besides the graduation, I just wanted to mention that somehow, I don't even know how this happened, but right as the Sonoran Trails they were doing the graduation thing at Sonoran Trails, where the high school kids were coming back there, I managed to pick that up on the live feed on Facebook from Ms. Sereno. So while I was working, I had that up there on the desk, cool, watching that while I was working. So that was very cool because I had not seen that before, and I thought that was really neat. So that's all I just wanted to add.
Did we look cool. Okay?
It looked great.
Okay.
Filmed well.
Okay.
Yeah, the graduation was amazing. It was kind of fun. I wasn't intimidated. I kind of liked walking in there to State Farm. It was like, oh, we're down below. Where's the big... But it was great watching all those kids and looking them in the eye and shaking their hand and helping hand out the diplomas. And I got a little teary-eyed. It was interesting. And it just reminded me that kids are kids. It hasn't really changed that much in terms of them seeing themselves on the big screen and then going, oh, just all of that. It was fabulous. So... yeah, now it's summer.
There you go. All right. Superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. So we have received some of our state test scores back. And as usual, our students have outperformed almost every other district in the state, especially our surrounding districts. So I know that Dr. Jensen's going to meet with the school leaders, and they're going to go over their results, and they're going to look to see where we need to, some of the things we need to work on for next year. But I look forward to, if you approve a position that's on the agenda this evening, really being data-driven in our decisions and using that data in our PLCs and using that data, showing the board how, the benchmarks that we've made and the things that we're doing with improving student scores. So this data will be coming to you in more of a formal this fall once we have that person in place and we have some data to share with you. And yes, Member Brown, thank you for coming to Maymania. It was amazing. The work that was done for our teachers, over 50 teachers attended, wonderful feedback. We did, a survey to get information from our teachers about where we can improve and how we can change things and do it better next time. We anticipate that this kind of set the groundwork for some of the PLC work we're going to be doing in early release Wednesdays. So that's really exciting. But the thing that really makes me feel good about what we did here was we have experts on staff. Like, we have some really amazing teachers, and they taught their peers in this and what they know. So just growing our own in their leadership, in their professional development by teaching others is really amazing. Yes, ECS is doing an amazing job this summer. All kinds of fun things that are happening for our kids over the summer. And Elaine and Jim have really gone above and beyond to make sure that the offerings are what the community wants and things that the kids really enjoy doing. And then one last thing is just to remind you all, district office is open Monday through Thursday. We're off on Fridays. We're doing 410s. Some of us are teleworking a couple of days a week, and that has really been a great success. Dr. Hendrickson is actually going to send out a survey to our staff and ask how that teleworking has gone, so we can kind of see how that's working for everybody, and if people are feeling productive and then they're really appreciating the fact that the board has allowed our staff to do that. So that's my comments.
Very good. Awesome. All right, we don't have any calls to the public, so item 3.1. All right, 3.1. From the prior board update, would like to discuss a discussion of what the governing board direction to the style and depth of governing board minutes and give direction to the board secretary. And this is presented by Vice President Brown. So.
This is to go back to a prior board update that we received back May 12th. On one of the pages, there was just a note that there was going to be a change to how board minutes was going to be taken care of, and I thought that maybe the board should have that discussion of what we would like to see in the minutes. More or less, more information, less information, or whatever, since minutes are the important part of our documents that we have to keep. Now, I do understand obviously the meetings are recorded and up on YouTube, but you can't print up a document off of a YouTube. So there's been many times we've gone back to a prior meeting and looked at our written minutes. Was there a question? Did we misunderstand something from a presentation? So the paper minutes are a resource. I'd hate to see those just completely go away. So I would like to just open it up for discussion. What's the other four board members? What are your thoughts? The minutes, I think, have been spot on here. I don't think there's been a problem. I like the information that are contained in the minutes, so I think we're going down the right path there. I don't look to make any changes. I would just like to maintain what we're doing right now.
Well, just for my part, I think that sometimes they can, I mean, it's word for word almost. And it can be really tough to get through. And the one that made me think of that, because I think it was shortly after that this came up, was that retreat. Mrs. Gatto wrote down every word of that. Oops. Sorry. Mrs. Gatto wrote down like every word of that retreat, including that whole thing of the survival thing. I was like, this is like an awful lot. So I don't really see a need for that much detail. I think if they summarize it, that would be fine. If there's a question about some certain things, we would be able to, check it. But I think that maybe right now this is more. That's my idea.
Yeah, I appreciate going back to the videos just because human error, just in case there is. I think Ms. Gatto does a great job, but also from an efficiency standpoint, because I think the update was that we're going to get a summary instead of verbatim. How much time does that usually take, Ms. Gatto, afterwards to write up all those minutes?
Well, depending on the length of the meeting, it can take anywhere from, a half a day to 3 days.
Yeah. 3 days seems not best use of resource, probably, if there's a summary and a video that's capturing things verbatim, but it's my...
What's the proposed summary consist of?
So what you have tonight in your meeting minutes, that is a summary. So you would see maybe there was a couple of questions asked, a brief if there was a presentation, what the presentation was about, and then how the board voted. So tonight would be an example if you look at the minutes in tonight's board meeting.
And that really does kind of show, I think, everything that you need to know without getting into every word.
Are the videos archived past the given school year?
Yes, the videos are out there forever.
They are?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just from my experience being on the board, the minutes have run the gamut from, a true transcript to this is what the agenda item was and this is what the vote was. And it was extremely pared down. And that's technically all we have to have. And I understand that this is a tool. I'm a proponent of making sure that we're using our resources to the best of our ability. I'm not sure spending 3 days on minutes is truly best use of Mrs. Scotto's time. As long as we have enough information recorded in minutes that everybody's comfortable with, I don't think having a transcript of who said what is necessary. If there's pertinent questions asked, perhaps the answers to those questions. Please chime in here, and because this is going to be directions for Mrs. Scotto, so.
Yeah, and I had looked at the minutes we're approving for this one, thinking that's probably how it would be. And actually, it's not just giving, an answer to everyone. It does include pertinent questions and things. So I thought this was a great summary, still with enough detail.
Well, but don't forget the last 2 minutes. I mean, last two meeting minutes, one meeting went 11 minutes and the other meeting went 27 minutes with very minimal items on the agenda. There really wasn't much for either meeting. Executive sessions, we had a budget hearing, which there was no comments on, a budget presentation. I mean, there wasn't a ton of business you know, you look at tonight's agenda, I mean, there's much more information that we could have pulled out of action consent and had discussion about.
How detailed of information do you want? Or what would be beneficial
Well,
for you?
I don't understand, not a year ago, December, a year before that, I was out visiting my mother in Illinois. I attended the meeting by phone. Well, the only thing I heard over the phone was, during the meeting, the majority was the typing on the somebody's laptop, which I assume was Mrs. Scotto, typing up the meeting as the meeting
Sure.
was evolving. Now, not just to sit and not do anything while we're in the meeting and then go back and wait till she can review the video and then type up the minutes off the video. That sounds like that's not such a great use of time. I agree with that, but used to be the minutes, you know, I can't see her from my spot here. I don't know if she's typing anything now or we're just waiting to pull it off of the recording.
How much information would be beneficial from your perspective to be included in the minutes?
Well, I think we definitely need to hear the discussion. If there's an item like budget, you know, that's very important. I would like to see, you know, the comments from all 5 board members. You know, this is also something that the community looks at too, don't forget. You know, this is a resource that they pull back on, whether they're watching the video or they're reading through the minutes. I get people commenting both ways. You know, I don't sit there and watch YouTube. I would rather read the minutes. But we have to show enough that if we need to go back, because the minutes are, you know, that was one of the reasons to go to the board docs program. So we had a larger storage capacity for meeting information, which I'm assuming is minutes and documents and whatnot. So we've made that move to board docs for that purpose. Because on the old website, after a year and a half, the minutes disappeared. And then if you had to go back and look at something, you had to either fill out a request and somebody had to go over to the warehouse and dig through X number of boxes to find the minutes. Now, that's an effective right there.
Mrs. Scotto, I've got a question for you. Well, you should be part of this conversation since it directly impacts you. Is there a way when you're doing these minutes to concisely give the gist of what the conversation was without, you know, Busby said this, Fortney said this, because that just becomes a transcript. I understand having an understanding of how the discussion went can be useful when you're looking at a vote. So from what you do for the minutes, is there a way that you can kind of encapsulate it so we get the gist without he said, she said?
Yes, what you have tonight, like, President Busby, governing board members, Mrs. Rodriguez, I apologize. What you have tonight to vote on is what I captured during the meeting. I do type during the meeting. If there's something that I don't understand, I'll listen to the recording, because we do record and we do have video. So I do capture what you're saying. I think it's important to know who asked the question and who answered it. By law, I have to put how the vote went. And really, you just need to put down what you discussed and who voted. That's all that's required. So we have an audio that's kept forever, we have a video that's kept forever, and then we have a summary that we do keep forever, right over here in this building on the district office property.
Okay. I know you've done the gamut of minutes, and it's just a matter of finding the happy medium here. And so everybody needs to be comfortable with what we're doing. I mean, so chime in here. Any more questions?
Yeah, I think that, I think a summary with what Member Brown is saying, you know, so that we have enough of the questions and answers. I mean, we definitely would want that to make sure that, you know, we can see that if a board member had a question, that it was answered and how it was answered so that they could go back and look if they needed to. But I think beyond that, like you're saying, he said, she said, going back and forth, especially like when there's a lot of discussion, but that doesn't have anything significant to do with the actual vote at the end, then we don't need all that. So some kind of a summary would be better than an 8-page document that we sometimes have to read.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, especially up to 3 days to create all those minutes is not a good use of time. What about potentially adding the timestamp of when each particular part, like 4.7 discussion started at 6:21, and have that in these minutes that are published, and then it makes it easier if somebody's going to go back to the video or the audio to review it so they don't have to sit through and fast forward and back up. Then they could get as best they could right to that, hear what they need to hear.
Right. Member Elmer, we do have the ability to do that in board docs, where we can put in the item and where it appears on board docs so that whoever's viewing the video can go right to that timestamp. As far as timestamping the minutes here, we're broken down under each item. Is that what you were referring to as far as timestamping? I wasn't quite understanding that.
Well, kind of like call to order, 6 p.m., right?
Oh,
Pledge of
okay.
Allegiance, 6:01. And not that every single one of those, obviously, everybody
Right.
knows within reason what it takes to do the pledge. But when we start like actual discussion of this, just noting it on there, 6:15 p.m.
I can do it.
or 15 minutes into the video.
It can be done on board docs with the video because the recording has a different timestamp than the video, and my notes have a different time than those other two options.
Are they close? I mean,
I never really looked at that.
yeah, I would think they probably would be. I mean, we can certainly look at that, but I would think efficiency-wise, that would make it easier to hop forward if there is a question that somebody has with some specific thing, to not have to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah. It can be done in board docs. They have room where you post the video where you can actually put 3.1 starts here,
Yeah.
3.2 starts here. So it is we can do that in board docs.
President Busby,
Yes.
if you don't mind if I interject. One of the things I've seen with board meeting minutes is just kind of what you're inquiring about, where you go and it'll actually break down the video into those sections. So you go 3.1, here's the video segment of 3.1. I don't know how much work that entails. I was just messaging Miss Elsie over there about that. I'm not sure what it looks like on YouTube, but it makes it efficient saying, because I agree, going back and forth, and did I get it? Yeah, I'm not sure. But you can break it down by each item and say, let me jump right to that part of the video. Again, I'm not sure how much that work that inquires, but that would alleviate some of that scrolling.
Well, if we have the capability in board docs, then that seems like that's a tool that's available for us to use, that we should definitely take advantage of it. From there, what is everyone's thoughts about having that timestamp also recorded in the minutes
Maybe just for each one, two, I don't know, every single little item.
for the discussions and things we vote on,
Yeah, like things that go to vote.
things that go to vote?
And then just the start, so it'd probably be all new business things that get voted on. And then the items of 1, 2, 3, 4. Because most of those sections go through pretty.
And I would say potentially the call to the public too, since those are,
Yeah.
comments from the community, to have those in there stamped so that anybody wanting to know could easily access it.
Sure. Scott?
We can come back and, we can try this for a couple of months, and then if
See
we
how
want to
it
bring
goes.
it back and see if we like what we want, or if we need to tweak it, or if, if maybe we figure out that the timestamp is good, or maybe not so good, or, I guess we can always go back and revisit. This is not a copyrighted policy. This is our policy, so we can put in there whatever we want to do. I just didn't want the minutes to get so condensed, Reader's Digest version, that were not even worth doing.
Was there something in tonight's minutes that you felt was missing? I thought the summary was really good. It still
No,
said how
but
we
like
each
you said,
voted.
these two meetings were very short meetings. There wasn't much discussion. Like I said, the one meeting 37 minutes.
Well, let's give this a shot, and this will be a group effort. You know, we're relying on Mrs. Scotto, so please let us know if this becomes, to timestamp any of this, if it becomes actually more labor intensive, because that's not the objective here. We can give it a shot, see how it goes for a few meetings, and if, as it was mentioned, if we need to tweak something, then we will tweak it. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Moving right along. Action consent. Is there a motion to approve? Pardon me? We moved it to the end.
Pulled to the end.
Is there a motion to accept action consent?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes 4 to 1. All right. Item 4.6.
Mostly just one, I know this includes a few course catalogs items, but one to pull, it's in reference to valedictorian and salutatorian changes on 4.6.
There.
Yeah, even right there's, that's perfect, right there. Just had a few questions with this. I believe, I know we're trying to figure out, since we've had multiple valedictorians and the salutatorian, how to narrow it down even more and have a tiebreaker, I believe, is in regards to this. And ACT has taken, though, the junior year, correct? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Member Walker?
and if we want to start this year, those students have already taken that test?
Yes, that would be correct. So those students would be based off of if they continue to have their 5.12 GPA. Just kidding. They're a very high GPA plus a high, that whoever has the highest ACT score would be the speaker at graduation. That's my understanding, is that this is about the speaker, because this last year they had multiple people who qualified.
Okay, my concern is if this is just in regards to who's speaking, if maybe not narrowing it down to, I hate to have people not get the recognition that they deserve, and it be over one test and we're trying to decide who the speaker is at graduation. Feels more like a competition than collaboration that a lot of these students are used to working in, especially most of them all come from either the small AP program or IB program and are used, so they kind of know where they're ranking. Do we know how tight of a race or what their scores are for this upcoming seniors?
No, Member Walker, I don't know, and I tried to get in touch with Mrs. Barella to see, but she said that they haven't looked at next year's yet because it's based off of their 7 semesters of GPA, so it goes up through December, and so I'm not sure how many are currently in the running in terms of having that perfect GPA with all IB classes, because basically that's what happens, is that the students who enroll in IB have the best shot at being valedictorians because of the weighted GPAs.
Is there a reason that we would not want to allow multiple speakers? I mean, these are students who've worked really hard, and this is sort of a really cool way to acknowledge their achievement. So why would we not?
I totally agree.
I mean, it's...
We should, if we have 5 students that are 4.0, but whatever the weighted is, we should, we should be celebrating that
Well,
Cactus
exactly.
Shadows pumped out 5 great students that were all 4.89 or 4.9. I mean, I hate to, I don't know. We have a unique situation coming up because what we've been told by staff, possibly there's going to be 5 students. Well, we had 3 students valedictorians this year and a salutatorian. So we already had 4 students that could have spoken at graduation. So, I mean, it's their time to shine. Why are we knocking them out at the knees?
I agree. And I
Are
think
we
that
time restricted? Are we I mean, how long do they actually even speak? 2 minutes?
I think we get to set the time. And so I think all of these are very valid points. And there's also been some ideas out there, and this might be something that you guys would like to consider also, would be just having it be an audition, because many schools also just say, like, some valedictorians don't want to speak, and instead they just cede it over to someone else. So for example, this year, at least one of our speakers was not valedictorian, but they had auditioned, and so they were able to speak at the end, I believe. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be that speaking is their recognition. It could just be, we bring them all up on stage, we clap for them, we honor them as being top in their class, and then they sit back down. So maybe something like a touch above top 2%, 5%, 10%, because we had them stand as well. So that could be something that would go back to the graduation committee, and they could determine the best way to do the speakers.
So you're saying you wouldn't have any of them speak? Come up on stage, get a round of applause, and go sit back down?
That just depends. That's an idea if they don't want to speak. So they could just audition, and then, like this past year, there were still auditions for speakers, and one student was a speaker who wasn't necessarily a valedictorian or salutatorian.
But
and
this,
there were a lot of problems.
This item's just specifically valedictorian, salutatorian. That's who
This
we're
one is,
dealing
yeah.
with now. Any other, whether it's the class president or student body president, that's on high school administration to allow that as part of building the program for graduation. What we're looking at here is celebrating the students that have achieved the highest marks possible as valedictorian. And I'm going to be a student and bust my rear end, and all I get to do is come up on stage for a clap and go sit back down. That's very anticlimactic. Plus, I think parents would be very upset of that too.
I think if they want to speak, then they should be allowed to. If they don't want to, they certainly don't have to be.
Right.
But I mean,
That'd be my worst nightmare.
there's not a lot of perks of being on the school board. I mean, it's surprisingly, but that is one of them. And listening to those kids at the graduation doing that stuff, that is the coolest thing. So I think that, anytime we can get more of them up there, and, we can do like our speakers here. Well, we got 15 of them, so we're going to have to give it down to a couple minutes each. That would be better than not, so.
Yeah, I don't know if it just doesn't sit well with me to base it all on one test to do a tiebreaker when all these kids if there's 5 of them that have these really high GPAs and are doing super well, why not recognize them all? I think other districts are even calling it more like summa cum laude, magna cum laude. My question with that would be more of what language matters the most for college admissions? Are you getting a higher scholarship because you're a valedictorian versus your magna cum laude, meaning you're the top 1% or 2% of your class? Do we know how, is it different for every university?
Yeah,
I
sadly.
think it probably is different, but again,
How
that
the
would be
language
something
works.
that I would maybe think, and this is something I'm wanting to do anyway, would be to have a year-long committee where we study this and then maybe bring back a proposal to the school board later on about if valedictorian and salutatorian is the most meaningful, 1, to the kids and 2, to the universities. So what carries the most weight with the universities, but also what about the students? Because I know it also adds a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety about, well, I lost my 4.0, so forget it. I'm going to get B's now. I don't care anymore. Or I need to enroll in that one program because that's the only way I can get the highest GPA. And I don't really want students selecting their courses solely based off of the highest GPA. Like, they should be choosing something that's going to set them up for a career or for college, whatever best suits them, as opposed to so that I can be the person who gets the most chords and the fanciest stole on that one day.
But historically, with our students, your high achieving GPA students are all going to be international baccalaureates because of the weighted classes.
Yes.
So just an honors kid is never going to break through. So we've already taken the student body down to the 17 or 20 kids that are in the IB program.
That's correct, Vice President Brown. I believe last year we had 8 diplomas, I'm not sure, for IB. And so, yes, they are narrowed down their freshman year based off of the classes that they choose. So if they choose AP instead of IB, they do not have as many offerings. So
Yeah, they'll never
that's what
make
will
it.
happen.
They'll never climb over. I mean, you have to
they
roll
choose-
right into the IB program.
That is correct. And if they choose fine arts, same thing. They will be knocked out of that running. If they choose and some of the CTE options, same thing. If they
But-
choose to go to EVIT, same thing. So that said, everybody has to make choices. So
Yeah, I would say the student and the parents need to make that choice. That's something I don't think we need to get into. You know, we put our course catalog out there. We have the AP program, the IB program. We have other great programs. We have the EVIT program. I mean, that's the choice we want the students to make. That's why we want to offer as much as we can at the middle school level. So when they roll in here on Cactus Shadows campus, they got an idea what they want to do and can proceed for the next 4 years, earning that goal, achieving that goal. So, and how many times have we seen students start out and get into the IB program, and by the time they get to a senior, they're like, I'm done. I can't do it. It's just too much time constraints. I have to work for a living. I got to do this. I got to do that. And we see more kids back out of IB than get into IB. So, like I said, we've already narrowed the pool down to those select seniors that have had that plan of classes from freshman to senior year. So for us now to say, well, guess what? You've busted your tail for 4 years, but we're only going to take one, you know, and a test, as you know, a test is a snapshot in time. And yes, these IB and AP students have to take very strenuous tests, but anybody can have an off day. And we may have the best GPA student, and that day he just or she just has a bad day. And to give up 4 years of hard work because of a test on a Saturday as a junior, that's a tough pill to swallow.
I'd like to make a motion that this is tabled.
Yeah.
And maybe another option could be brought forward at another time.
absolutely, we can do that.
Okay. Okie dokie then.
Thank you. I was hoping we can maybe table that. Seems like there's a lot of questions still that need to be looked into
How
for
about
that one.
4.7 now?
4.7
Oh, we need a second, yes.
Second.
To table
to
it.
table.
Yeah.
Did you second it?
You second? Okay, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we've tabled. 4.7.
All right, this was mine as well. Yeah, how the developmental preschool program is going to work now that, so there won't be just one preschool at Desert Sun. Traditionally, those that qualified to be funded preschool was held at Desert Sun, and now we're going to have one of those at every elementary campus, or they're going to be intermingled. I kind of want more details about that.
Not quite.
Okay.
So, good question, Member Walker. So I understand the way it looks is that we're going to have a full-fledged, self-contained DPS program, which is developmental preschool program, at all 5 campuses. That's not the case. If we had 5 special ed early childhood teachers, absolutely, we would love to do that, and we could have these nice small class sizes, provide this early intervention to all of these 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. That would be outstanding. Unfortunately, these teachers are hard to find, and so we need to centralize our resources the best we can. We've had the program primarily at Desert Sun. This year, our plan is to have one at Desert Sun and one at Lone Mountain, because we have had 2 classrooms for the past several years. So that would be the self-contained program, meaning students with disabilities who are more severe, that they can't necessarily spend their entire day in a typical preschool classroom. So it's really hard for me to say exactly which disabilities that is, because it depends. It depends on the child and how independent they are and how much extra support they need. However, what was happening, the reason we needed it at all 5 schools is because what had been happening was there were some students in, I'm just going to say, Mrs. Aronson's class at Desert Willow Elementary, who qualified for speech services during the course of her time working with them. So she had worked with them. She said, hey, they're not speaking maybe as much as I would expect of a 3-year-old, so let's test them. They would go through an evaluation. Yes, they'd qualify for speech services. As soon as that happened, they would be sent down to Desert Sun for half of the day, and they'd spend half of the day where their parent was paying for ECS preschool at Desert Willow. Well, in this particular case, the teacher said at a certain point, wait, I don't understand. Why are you taking that child out of my class for half of the day and sending them down to Desert Sun Academy where they're sitting in a class of 10 students who are all not speaking? How is my child going to learn language that way if they're sitting with other kids who also are nonverbal? And the IEP committee kind of talked about it and said, yeah, you're right, this doesn't make sense. So we chose to keep the child at Desert Willow and have the speech pathologist who's at Desert Willow push in and support that student in that particular case. So that kind of started this model, which is really what we ought to have been doing the whole time. It's what we'd call least restrictive environment. We want them with their typically developing peers as much as possible. However, if we do that and we are not classified as a developmental preschool, we don't receive funding for all of the speech services that child's getting. And so this way, it really is just a way for us to make sure that we're getting funding. It's not really going to look any different at Desert Willow, at Black Mountain, or at Horseshoe Trails. They will look exactly the same. Their speech pathologist will help the kids who need speech support, and all of the rest of the students will just continue as normal. Lone Mountain will look a little bit different just because we're expanding the program so that we have a self-contained as well as this other push-in. Does that explain it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the DPS program in all 5 elementary schools as was presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. 6.1.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This educational fulfillment agreement is between the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado and Cave Creek Unified School District. This actually allows us to have interns from this university to come and work with our nutrition director. They are learning about healthy eating. She is a registered dietitian, and she would like to mentor these interns.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Unless I missed it, is this just a 1-year contract? A 1-year agreement?
Yes, this would be a 1 year, so we would bring it back to you next year if it's a program that we want to continue.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 6.2. Proposed budget for 2023-24, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So every year we are required to bring a proposed budget to the governing board. Please go back to the agenda. Thank you. This proposed budget just establishes what we would like the board to consider to adopt. The proposed budget is based on numbers that were allocated from the legislature to the districts. It's wonderful this year because they have approved a budget down at the state. So we know what our numbers are this year. Last year we were in a different position. But what I have provided here is just kind of highlighted what some of the factors are in the proposed budget that we are asking you to approve this evening. So the total weighted ADM includes Group B, and you've heard that term Group B. That is the additional weight that we have for our special needs students. We also get some Group B for our K-3 students. So overall, Basically, we're saying the weighted ADM is going to stay the same. I've got it going down a little bit just because we have some adjustments when I move grades up. So kinder to first, first to second. We have a smaller kinder class coming in than graduating seniors. We are hoping to get some of our 7th and 8th graders coming back. A lot of times, typically, we will. And we looked at enrollment numbers today, and they're looking really positive. So I'm excited about sharing with that moving forward. But I think this is a very conservative estimate on the ADM. The base level support, that's the amount we get per weighted ADM, and the state did increase that by 2.9%. The other factor that goes into setting this proposed budget, and part of what we report to the community and we're accountable to the community, is the tax rate that we set. So the tax rate is based on how much our total budget is divided by our primary assessed value. So as you can see, our primary assessed value, which is our property value in the district, went up 6.2%. And that's, pretty much to be expected. The limit is 5% of what your assessed value can go up as far as tax purposes are. And then we had some new building happening in the district. So that is a good number. And then what happens then when that assessed value goes up and our budget really doesn't go up as much, you get a lower tax rate for our community. I will remind you that there's still the qualifying tax rate law in place. So when the district's tax rate goes down, that means the amount of money that our taxpayers send down to the state to make up that difference goes up. So just because our rate's going down doesn't mean the rate that our constituents pay goes down, unfortunately, because the balance just goes to the state, because the state makes us all pay the same amount of taxes, or a minimum amount. Because of the decrease in the ADM, our M&O base level just went up a little bit slighter, 1.7%, 555,000. The one big thing that's happened this year is that one-time funding. So that $1.1 million, that is the one-time funding. That's going to increase the budget a little bit. Our district additional assistance, which is our capital, stayed basically the same, and so did our classroom site funds. So those rates are going to maintain. So what I am asking this evening is for the board to approve this proposal of a budget. We're required to publish it for 10 days on the Department of Education's website. We're going to come back on June 26th after the public has had an opportunity to review this budget, and we will have a public hearing. If there is any public that would like to come and speak to the budget, they may do so at that time. And then we would ask the board to adopt this proposed budget, and then that will be our budget that establishes tax rate. And that we will be working for. Now, you remember our budget changes throughout the year, so this is a projection of an estimate, a guesstimate, however you would like to say. Pretty confident of these numbers, though. I think that we will see some steady. I'm hoping that the ADM numbers will go up based on some of the positive things that have happened in the last month. And so if you have any questions, I would entertain them at this time.
All right, is there a motion to approve the proposed budget for 2023-24 as presented?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay, any questions?
In a prior update, you had told the board there was going to be a small amount of M&O that you were going to be able to roll over. Is that included, or are we to that point yet that you can know what that number is?
Yeah, in the actual budget forms themselves, if you would look at page 7, I'm projecting a rollover carry forward of 859,000. Now, what I will tell you as well, and we do have plans for that 1.71 time. Mr. Hendrickson and Mr. Dolzel have been working with the IBN team, and we have some recommendations that will be coming to you at the next meeting. So, Member Brown, one of the recommendations will be not to spend that one time all at once. That we have, we still have to figure out a couple of the details of how we're going to allocate it, but what everybody has agreed upon is that 1.1 will be spread out over the next 3 years. So you will see that being carried over as well.
But that's a separate fund other than the M&O carryover. Two different groups here.
Well, that will become an M&O carryover in the future for
Right.
next year, but for right now, that 800.
Yeah, I mean, we split that up into thirds or however it's going to be. It'll be, 600,000 carries over, then 300,000 the following year. I get that. Okay. And then we also, this budget still includes what we have remaining in our ESSER 3 funds.
That is correct. Yes, about 1.2.
And we still have till September of '24, I believe, to use that up.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 7.1, upcoming calendar events. Mrs. Rodriguez.
So it's pretty quiet. We just a couple of things on the upcoming calendar events. We have the 4th of July that the office will be closed. We will resume going back to 5 days a week on July 24th. And the first day of school is August 7th, and it'll be here before we know it.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Item 3.2, the evaluation of school board self-evaluation. All right. All right. This gets to be presented by me. We've approached this, the board, over the years has approached this in many different ways. And I like to look at this sort of how I would approach a job evaluation. And, this is a tool, individually we complete this tool, questionnaire. But I approach it with the thought in mind, how can we make ourselves better individually and collectively, because we represent the school district. So what is it that we collectively can do individually and collectively to make ourselves stronger, to make ourselves a more effective board? And there's always room for improvement, regardless of how good we are. So with that said, I'm not going to go through each area line by line, because I'm not sure that that's really productive unless you guys want to go through each section line by line. Okay, so with that said, areas where we can collectively work to improve.
Well, I think for me, it's not so much the tool here. The tool's fine, and I think that it kind of gets on all the basic areas that you really want to address. The thing that I want to just understand is, it seems like not everybody is doing this all the time. So we've had a couple of times where we've had a few do it. I think this time we had 4. I think if we want to have this be a thing, like you said, then shouldn't this is a policy. Shouldn't we be required to do this, or is this not a required thing?
No, it's a policy. One of the things that I think has sat in the back of some members' minds is, over the years, the way that comments are presented has been a gamut. Sometimes the comments are published and they're anonymous. There are other times where it was randomly, comment number 1 came from this board member, comments 2 and 3 had no one attached to it, and comment 4 was from this other board member. Other times, everything was anonymous. There have been times where ownership was given to each comment. And I think there was probably some trepidation as to, okay, how is this going to be published? And, this is a tool for us. We don't publicize an employee, nobody's publicizes an employee evaluation. And so, this is our tool.
Right.
And, I would like for everybody to complete it. It wasn't completed by everybody, but I expect everybody to provide some input because we do have areas where we can improve. And we need to be transparent with that. And we need to be sincere and honest about wanting to collectively improve. So with that said, anybody have any suggestions on areas you'd like to see improved? Well, let me preface all of this. Everybody comes with a unique set of skills and understanding, and there's value in that. And just like that retreat that we had, any one person is only effective to a point. Collectively, there are better ideas. The one thing that I maybe would like to charge everybody with is committing to keeping an open mind, whatever your personal opinion is about any given anything. We are here first and foremost to support education in this district. We are here to support our classrooms, our teachers, our students. And, whatever my personal opinion is, that's my opinion. But my job here is, as a school board member, is to support our classrooms. So, putting aside whatever personal biases may arise, we need to commit to truly listening and keeping an open mind when we are discussing something that's possibly a heated topic. Because if we can't honestly come forward and keep an open mind, we're not doing any justice to our classrooms. All we're doing is hurting them. And we ask our students, to be open-minded, to be critical thinkers. Well, we got to practice what we preach.
I completely agree. I think I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about. I don't, from my perspective, I don't have a problem going through this twice a year. It seems like a long time ago that we did this for some reason, but I don't have a problem doing that, and I don't have a problem putting my name to it. It is weird sometimes that it's like, well, who said that? And then we can't really have a real good discussion because we don't even know who said it. But if we actually took this thing seriously and really committed to addressing every one of these things, I mean, there's been times when you want to talk about one particular thing under board member, a board relationship with superintendent, but maybe there's other things where it's just kind of a broad thing. But at least you're taking all these areas and you're addressing them, and yeah, you should, definitely you're on the board. This is your job, and you can't pick and choose what parts of this job you want to do. So I think we should all be doing it, and we should be putting our name to it, and then we can discuss it. And then if we want to have another retreat where we can talk about some of this stuff in more detail, fine. If not, fine. But I think just when I approach this, I feel like the level of what you're getting is so different that I think it would just be nice if you said, you took it seriously and really committed to trying to improve.
With a job evaluation, typically an employee has goals, correct, Dr. Hendrickson? Something that's very unique about our self-evaluation, ourselves here as board members, we don't have stated goals. We have district goals and the superintendent has goals, but us as a board, we've never really had goals. And I think having, it could be one goal, it could be two goals, it could be however many we would choose. But I think having some stated goals will make working through an evaluation a little more effective, because we're policing ourselves and we're giving ourselves a standard to measure against, instead of just something, well, what do you think? Well, we have 5 people, so there's 5 opinions. But let's set a standard. What is good communication with the superintendent? How do we define it so we can measure ourselves and decide if we truly have been effective?
And I think the timing of this one's been a little bit hard because we didn't.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we had our acting and superintendent, so
we could,
some of these.
and we don't need a goal for everyone right now.
Right.
But
right.
for this exercise here,
I think going forward, now that we have an interim superintendent named, it's probably a really good timing to go through all of these and what we expect with.
Exactly.
New
And so,
superintendent coming in.
what is it that we identify as good communication? What is it?
Weekly updates. I like seeing answers to questions that were brought up through the week.
What's coming from us? That's coming from the superintendent. So
Well, no, our questions based
Okay.
on agendas.
Okay.
I like when those are shared, so that
So
everybody.
is the expectation that all board members should be submitting questions to the superintendent? Is the expectation that, because there's the expectation the superintendent's going to have a weekly update. Well, that's coming from the superintendent. What's coming from us?
Well, I wouldn't want to put us in a situation where we have to come up with a question.
I
You know,
wouldn't
that
either.
would, that would be,
No.
that would be wrong. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you're gonna get
I don't
down
ever
to-
like to hear myself
Put more
talk just
work.
to hear myself talk.
Exactly.
I want to, so I want, there are times when I've had a few and there's times when I don't. So I think that, I don't know, it's an interesting concept, this goal thing, but yeah, I would have to think about how that would
Well,
play itself out. But yeah.
I want to kind of give a little side note here. When I've had conversations with Mrs. Rodriguez or Mr. Dolezal, and something may be suggested, I've always asked them, how's that going to make us better? Because we want our school district to improve, and we can continue to do things exactly how we've done it, and we're going to get the same results. If we change things, that gives us an opportunity to have a different result. That's why I ask, how is that going to make us better? And so with this evaluation, we've always done it this way, and we've always gotten the same result. So now is the time to do something different to get a different result.
I think that's a good idea, because, yeah, nothing happens with this. I don't think.
Exactly. We need to hold ourselves accountable. Every employee in this district is held accountable to some standard. What are we setting as our standard?
Well, I can say as the new kid on the block, this was really helpful to me. And as I've expressed, I didn't have that many comments because I felt like I was so new. And perhaps I was given this when I was sworn in or shortly after. It would be helpful. I'm just going to say for the future. I don't recall getting it prior to that, but it helped me to look at what kind of my role is and what to expect in the future to weigh in on and be involved in and do my job, as you said, which is so true, do it to the best of my ability. I was 3 weeks in when we had the leave of absence of our superintendent, so, all eyes were kind of focused on that. And it really was a good chance as the new person to experience the board and a big issue and getting all of that resolved. But beyond that, I looked at a lot of those questions and thought, I don't really have I'm kind of like you. I don't want to just weigh in to hear myself talk. If I don't have anything to say, I'm not going to say it. So it's very helpful moving forward to look at this regularly. And I like your question, Janet, how is this making us better? And I don't have any problem at all having my name attached to what my answers are. I feel like that's transparency. I feel like that's what I owe the community. I certainly owe the staff to know, as a board member, how I am weighing in, if I'm taking my job seriously, and how all that's going to be perceived. And that gives room for people to give me feedback too, which I'm very open to, that feedback as a governing board member and a member of the community, and wanting the best for our students and our staff and everyone else. So I am appreciating this, even though I didn't have a whole lot to share when I wrote. I think I answered 3 questions, because it was like, the rest of it, I'll just see you in 6 months.
Since we do have an interim superintendent coming in, there's a learning curve for everybody. So, some of the standards that I think are important for us is that we truly listen, that we are available to the superintendent whenever that may, if there's, if he has questions for you about special ed, since you're our resident authority, available to meet, and maybe how we go about contacting the superintendent. Do we want to pick up the bat phone every time, or are we going to hold that in reserve, and first level of contact is via email? I know that we are the supervisor to the superintendent, but the superintendent also has a job and duties. And so, is picking up the phone the most effective way for us to truly communicate? If we have questions, I know they're important, but.
I always like sending an email, that way there's a paper trail, and almost every time, whether it's been with Monroe or Ms. Rodriguez, Dr. Jensen, they usually always follow up with a phone call anyways. Sorry, just for clarity. But I do think for time and emails, I don't know what you guys prefer, but I like having the paper trail, and sometimes then a phone call follows up for clarification.
I like the emails, and that way we have it in writing, and then we can clarify with a phone call, like you said, if there's something that we want to ask to make sure we're giving you the right information.
Okay. Anything else to add to this list?
Well, we have that already in place.
Well, we're trying to, my goal is to identify very specific things that we discuss here, and, once you discuss them and agree to it, we kind of take some ownership to it. And so I realize that's a protocol that we have, and I'm drawing from that on this. So is there anything else to add to this list, how we're going to hold ourselves accountable?
Well, I think have to think about that. I can't just not off the top of my head, but I think that maybe we should come back to this with an idea of, maybe we could submit some possible goals and say, hey, these are some possible things where we could actually quantitatively or something say that this has been done and we can show it. So I think that would probably be a good idea.
Okay, so we got a good place to start here. So put that in the future to-do list. Okay, can we move along after A? Whoever is running the, who's in charge of the screen?
Would you like to see the rest of the questions? Yes.
We
Please,
did
the rest
A,
of the
so where are the
questions
rest of the
on
questions?
item 3.
3.2. Thank you.
Just need to scroll.
Scroll down, up, down, whichever direction it goes. Okay, B. All right, relationship with the community. One of the things to keep in mind, while we are all individual citizens of this community, we're also elected officials. And be it right or be it wrong, whatever we put out there under any guise, it always comes back to remind us, you're a school board member. So, if you're given recommendation for what grocery store to go to. Oh, well, she sent me to that grocery store and, ooh, didn't have a good experience. So, I just caution everybody with, what we post out there, just be mindful of how we got to where we are. So.
I think that as board members, I think that one of the good things is that when we do see those emails that come to us, we try and respond. And obviously we don't talk, get into discussions with the community, but we refer them to, tell them that we're referring them to the superintendent. Sometimes I'll say, hey, just make sure that if you get a response, just let me know, so that if you don't, we can do that. But so you have the responsibility to communicate, at least on that level, with the community,
Exactly.
so that they know that somebody's hearing them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's important, when we have someone who feels strongly enough to send every member of the board an email, that we acknowledge, thank you for your comments. We will, take it into consideration, pass it along, whatever is appropriate, just so that that person knows that their email did not end up in the black hole. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All righty. What's number C? All right. During meetings. Well, anybody got any comments about this?
we should do these things.
We,
I think the no surprises are great.
I will say, and I thank everybody here, that this group of individuals on this board has been very respectful of each other. There have been moments when I've been on the board where it has not been so pleasant. I mean, there have been times when I came to a board meeting, said hello to everybody, and I was ignored. Spent a whole school year being ignored. So, at the very least, I appreciate the common courtesy that everybody shares. And as I said, we all come from a different place. So we all have unique perspectives, and I just think it's important that we be respectful of that. So, all right, C. D. Anything you guys want to add to this? Nope, okay.
No,
We're
it's
good.
good too. I think us all being assigned to school really helps with D.
One thing that I do want to ask Mrs. Rodriguez, and I think I asked you about this once before. We have a protocol that, we let the district office know that, hey, we want to go to this school or whatever, which I think is great. And along with that, at some point, it then became someone from the cabinet is then going to be an escort for us on a campus. Is that necessary?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I've done a little research on that.
Yes.
That is not common practice.
Okay.
Cabinet members are very busy people.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because it
And-
seems like it's pulling away from duties that should be done as opposed to being a tour guide.
That is correct. So we do appreciate the courtesy of, hey, I'm going to be at this event, or I would like to tour the school, and that allows the principal then to be available to you as board members. And just, a reminder that you are board members. When you come on campuses, it's a big deal. Hey, did you see, member so-and-so was on the campus today. But again, you are also a public citizen. So we don't typically allow people just to wander the campuses. We like to make sure that they're escorted. So if there's something specific that you want to see, or there's an event you're there to attend, the principal appreciates the fact of, letting them know so they can make sure they're available and show you. But we have agreed as a cabinet Now, Mr. Dozel may have a different idea, but we feel that it's not necessary for a cabinet member to be on campus when you're on campus.
Is everybody good with that?
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about efficiencies of time at the beginning of this meeting, and so I'm kind of still in that mode.
Well, while it was nice to be there with Dr. Jensen, I definitely did not expect it, and he doesn't need it. It was fun. It was good. But yeah, I don't think we need that every single time.
Okay. All right.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, we're good. All right. The instructional program, anybody want to add anything to this that we can implement to make ourselves better? Okay, moving right along. Relationship to financial management of schools. Well, I personally think Mrs. Rodriguez does a fabulous job, and I defer to you on all financial measures, so I'm good.
Same.
You can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you're stuck. We have super glue for your chair. G. Adherence to governing board operating principles. When it talks about mission, vision, beliefs, and goals, at one point, I know that there was a brief mention or conversation that we might want to reevaluate that.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I believe that that will be something that we revisit with our new interim superintendent. I know that he does have some ideas about maybe how to adjust and shift some of those goals moving forward. Again, I think for the better in some of the preliminary conversations I've had. Unfortunately, he's not here to be with us this evening. He's at a conference today and tomorrow, but I definitely would look forward to this being on the agenda in the future.
Okay, perfect. Then we can move on from there. H.
I think there's just a budget.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, now let me ask everybody this. Overall, how would you rate our effectiveness?
Right now, I think overall we're doing a good job. It's funny because, you know, like, member Ulmer has been here since January, but it only seems like it's been a couple, you know, we've only been, you know, we've only had a few meetings. So it was, when I was looking at this, it's kind of like, well, geez, I don't know. We haven't done that much. But it was like, well, actually, yeah, we have. We've done quite a bit, actually. So I think that this board was put into a situation that nobody expected and nobody knew how to handle. But I think that we managed it very well. And so I'm appreciative of that. So I think going forward, I think that just I don't know, there's a word for it, but all I can think of is the wackiness of that situation. It was a good thing for this board to coalesce and say, okay, we have to do these things, and we did them. So I think that's a real nice push off for what's going to be going on.
Yeah, I've often thought about our unique situation, and you can look at it one of two ways. Your glass is either half full or half empty, and we could be really upset and mad and, oh man, what are we going to do? But collectively, this board took it as an opportunity, and I would like to think that we collectively took it, ran with it, and we have succeeded. And we're very fortunate that Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to man the ship. You wake up one day, you're the CFO, and by the end of the day, you're also the acting superintendent. And you've done a fabulous job, and I am eternally grateful for that. And so I think in that respect that whatever anybody's opinions were, that all went away, and we looked at this. We got a job to do. We got to figure this out, and everybody had brought good ideas to the table, and we worked together. And that's what I hope we can do going forward. Is look at it as here's the task at hand. You may like me, you may not. That's really immaterial to what's going on in our schools.
Yeah, I think that was my highlight of my comments too, was this limbo period and kind of all things we had to get done. The collaboration that happened was spot on. I think we did a great job. A really great job.
Actually, I look at it as it was truly a gift for us. And because had we not had our situation happen, we wouldn't have been put in a position to work collectively the way that we did. And I think it proved to us that regardless of where you stand on, anything, whether you like Frosted Flakes or Wheaties or whatever, you were able to put our differences aside and focus on the task at hand. And so collectively out of all of that, I think that's one thing I want everybody to take away from this, is that we have that ability, and we just need to remind ourselves that we've done it, we were successful, so we got to keep doing it because we are the leaders of this district. We ask our staff, we ask our students to collaborate and work collectively and be critical thinkers. We need to practice what we preach. Okay, I'm done. Anybody else have any comments?
I gave us an excellent, I think that was the number 4 level based on all of that. Like I said, I was new. I looked at it and I thought I felt so good about how we came together and all of that. And so all I had to really rate us on was that. And so that's what I picked.
Okay. So in your free time, think about some things that we can, it can maybe only be one thing, but something that we as a board could use as a measuring stick for how we perform in any given area. It just something so that our evaluation tool is more effective. As I said, employees have goals to shoot for. What's our standard? So there you have it. Any other comments? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
We didn't vote.
Oh. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Okay.